Having surpassed 1,000 completed anime, it's time to review my old favorites and find out what holds up. I'm Sacrabolic, your envoy of hope, and this is Anime Favorite Search. Owarimonogatari's second season is unequivocally the best season in all of Monogatari. It is essentially divided just into 3 parts and 3 arcs. It uses the first 2/3 of its runtime to basically you do some final bits of establishment, some final bits of clearing up, and some final bits of setup before we get to the final arc of the narrative of Ogi Dark, the best arc in all of Monogatari, which not just ties together all of the stories that come about in Owarimonogatari second season, it also ties in all of the stories, all of the characters, and all of the arcs across the entire series. And so starting off, Maoi Hell is the arc where Araragi wakes up in Hell after having previously been killed in the Koyomi Dead arc. And he encounters a Maoi Hachikuji who apparently just automatically went to Hell because she died before her parents. That's fucking horrifying. Let me throw that out there. And this involves Araragi going back through his life, sort of reflecting on the women in his life and the alternate paths that his choices could have made. And we come to find out that Tadetsuru was in fact contacted by Oshino Meimei, and the whole situation that occurred in Tsukimonogatari was of course part of the plan by Izuku Gaien. This isn't surprising necessarily, because Izuku Gaien has pretty much planned the vast majority of the entire series. The big reveal, I guess, with that is that Tadetsuru has been dead the entire time, and he, ghost animates his puppet bodies or some shit like that. That, and the fact that Oshino Meimei is still running around and actively participating in the plot, even though we haven't seen him in a bazillion episodes. Regardless, it seems as if the entire purpose of this is to sort of remove the vampiric aspect from Araragi. Basically, he gets divorced from Shinobu in his relationship with her as she goes back to fully to her kiss shot form, and we get a full reveal, not that we couldn't have already figured it out, on who it was that contracted Tadetsuru to take out Araragi in the first place, and it is, of course, best girl Oshino Ogi. There is also worth noting that we have Araragi in a spur-of-the-moment decision resurrecting Maoi Hachikuji because he's just like that. And this, according to Gaien at least according to Izuku, was not something she foresaw, but was something that was beneficial for her. And one could say that this offhanded decision of Araragi is what wins the game for Izuku's side. She didn't see this coming, and she would have won no matter what against Ogi, because there's no way I can see Ogi actually withstanding the sheer planning power of Izuku. But this really is where the game is lost on Ogi's side. And it is also sort of nice to see the return of Maoi since she's been gone for so long, and knowing where this is going towards the ends of Owarimonogatari second season. Regardless, this is very much a introductory arc to Owarimonogatari as we head into the end point of this, and I would say that this isn't necessarily the best part of the series. It very feels like a setup and a build-up to the oncoming storm. Hitagi Rendezvous is an arc where Araragi and Senjo Gahara end up going on a nice little romantic date. As far as the romance angle of this is, it's actually pretty cute, because Senjo Gahara keeps trying to challenge Araragi to contests, and in return, she'll receive absolute obedience if she wins, and he just keeps beating her at absolutely everything. And so it's got a nice, cute, little amusing moments. Other notable thing is that at one point, Araragi falls a fucking sleep while listening to a lecture at a planetarium, and in his dreams, he is communicated with by Ogi, who sort of lectures him on justice and doing things the right way and the correct way. And Ogi identifies herself as a balancing force in the universe. This actually ties into the greater themes of Monogatari pretty well, and I could spend an awful long time talking about this conversation, but to be honest, it's actually a little bit hard to put into words how well it integrates into it, and I don't think it's worth the time investment to actually attempt it. So you'll just have to take my word for it that this conversation is actually pretty meaningful and connects very well to the greater themes of the story. Regardless, at the end of the episode, Ogi confronts Araragi one more time. Araragi is very weary of Ogi at this point due to the Tadetsuru revelation in the Mayoi Hell arc. And Ogi basically urges Araragi to abandon the oddities in his life, to abandon Mayoi Hachikuji, to abandon Kiss Shot, probably in extension to abandon Nadeko and Hanakawa, and live a normal human life, but also to side with her in the conflict against Izuko, who she admits has lured her into a trap that she is sort of forced to fall into, even if it kills her. And what this does is, one, it sort of helps contextualize Ogi's actions going forward, but also it gives us our major build-up towards the final Owarimonogatari arc in Ogi Dark. Ogi Dark is the best arc in all of the Monogatari series. In this, we have what is basically the conclusion of the entire story, with Hana Monogatari basically functioning as an epilogue. In fact, when I heard that the story continued past this arc outside of Hana, which has already aired, I genuinely could not fathom how they could keep going with that. And I guess I'm gonna find out. I have seen the Zoku movie, so I guess I already kind of know, but regardless, Ogi Dark basically concludes the story arcs of every major character, and it does it in a satisfying way. Like, for example, we have the solidification of the relationship between Araragi and Shinobu. We have Mayoi finally finding a home for herself. We don't really get anything specifically for Kanbaru or Nadeko, but we actually don't need to because their arcs have already been concluded. The same with Sodachi. We do have an interesting little interaction between Ogi and Tsukihi, where we learn the truth behind Ogi as an existence, and you get to really reflect back on all of the excellent foreshadowing that has occurred throughout the entire series. And honestly, this is the Ogi Dark arc, I think, is what makes Monogatari so much better on a rewatch, because when you go back over the entire series, you can really see every single arc, every single confrontation, every conversation, everything building to these characters' arcs' conclusions and to the reveal of Ogi's identity. And I think that there is when you go back to the Ogi-Tsukihi conversation that happens in the Ogi Dark arc, they actually have a discussion about Ogi and mystery novels. And Ogi has always had a sort of association with detective fiction and mystery novels, where Tsukihi counters what Ogi says about stories being boring once the mastermind is revealed, once you find out who the culprit is, with the reveal that once you find out who the culprit is, this is what Tsukihi says, the story is actually more scary because you get to learn about the nature of the monster and that it actually existed, and then you have to do a bunch of paperwork. The paperwork does not apply to the situation with Ogi, but the reveal of who and what Ogi is very much does go in line with the idea that the monster is scarier once you know about it. Because the reveal that we received during Hitagi Rendezvous is that Ogi is not the darkness. We already know that Ogi's not the darkness, but what Ogi actually does recontextualizes the entirety of the story, and it really does bring, above all other characters, Araragi's arc to its final definitive conclusion, as Ogi and him, and with his association with Ogi, he learns how to essentially grow up, and Ogi Dark basically puts this like coming of age narrative bow on the entirety of the Monogatari series, where Araragi learns the true final lesson that he was supposed to this entire time, that there is sort of values in selfishness and that you have to fight to protect yourself. You can't just be constantly sacrificing yourself, which is a lesson that Ogi has been trying to teach him the entire time. One could even almost argue that this is basically the point of Ogi, even though it is literally the exact opposite of what Ogi's point is. But then, on the other hand, being the opposite of what Ogi's purpose is in turn Ogi's purpose in the narrative, if that makes any sense. And the final narrative conclusion and motif conclusion that comes about due to the finale is really what makes this the greatest arc in all of Monogatari, as we see Araragi finally learn this lesson that he was supposed to back in Bakemonogatari, which is you might be able to help people along, and as we've established throughout the course of the entire series, no one can live alone, everyone needs help, but at the end of the day, no one can save you, you have to save yourself. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic, your envoy of hope. Bye-bye!